Second Dinner's handling of the Kid Omega pricing fiasco is the worst thing their company has done since Nexus events. Let's talk about it. This was the statement, and I'll save you the trouble of reading it. It basically apologizes for a couple of communication missteps and says that they're going to send out 2500 volts in order to compensate for some of the bugs in the game mode. This is widely regarded by basically everyone who saw it as a doubling down on the pricing of Kid Omega. Now, if you've been living under a rock, Kid Omega is Marvel Snap's recent limited time game mode card. There are a couple of details about its pricing that make it awkward and hard to understand. The first of those things is that it costs 9,000 gold, but you can earn a discount on it by playing the entirety of the game mode. If you play the entirety of the game mode, complete all your quests, which refresh every 8 hours, and some of which are bugged, collect all of your free volts, some of which don't show up in your inbox, you will be able to purchase Kid Omega for 2,000 gold. In addition, once the event is over, Kid Omega will not be going straight to the Series 5 packs. He will only be going into Series 5 packs on July 16th, a month after the event started. This means that there will be a period of about 3 weeks where people will be wholly unable to purchase Kid Omega by any means. In addition, he is not currently available for tokens. The only way to purchase him is with gold. The original statement said you can get gold from other game modes, but that's just much less true than it is of tokens. Gold is far less a free-to-play currency in the amounts required to get Kid Omega than tokens are. People get 3,000 tokens on the collection track. They're not getting 3,000 gold, despite the fact that gold converts into tokens at a negative rate, meaning technically gold is worth less than an equivalent amount of tokens. That is very clearly not happening here. So what this is the most expensive card in the game. It is exclusively available to people who are paying money, and it is only available to those people right now, meaning that in 4 or 5 days, even if you pay money, you won't be able to get the card. The reason I compare this to Nexus events is because they share a similar underlying dynamic. That dynamic being paid exclusivity. And I think that is at the root of many of Marvel Snap's failed monetization ideas, this being one of them. Paid exclusivity is simply not a thing that other card games monetize. When you play Hearthstone, you might get an advantage from buying 200 packs at the beginning of the season, but you don't have any cards that other people can't acquire. That is fundamentally not a thing that they try to monetize. The same goes for Magic the Gathering. There's cool art that you can't necessarily acquire for the same price, but there is the ability to acquire it. And so while these games are arguably more heavily monetized than Marvel Snap, they're not monetized in such a way that prevents the acquisition of game pieces. No matter how bad they get, there's no premium exclusive cards that only really go to the people that are willing to spend a ton of money on them. And I realize we have a battle pass in this game, which is a premium exclusive card that people are willing to spend money on. And I think the difference between the battle pass and Kid Omega is one of those things is getting a card for a very good deal, and one of those things is getting a card for a very bad deal. Remember, Kid Omega, the single most expensive card in the game. Converting tokens to gold gives you every other Series 5 card at about 8,000 gold. Converting gold to volts gives you Kid Omega at 9,000. So, where does this leave us when it comes to what solutions are? I broke down the problems that I see with this monetization model into several categories. Category number 1 is the baseline concept of premium exclusivity. I'm going to assume that they want that. They have stated in their statement that they just released that the pricing of Kid Omega, i.e., you can get him for gold with a discount for playing the mode, is intentional. However, I think that even if you go beyond that, there are so many things they could have done to make this not the fiasco that it was. And they have chosen not to do any of them. So let's talk about what it is they could have done and what it is they should do in a world where this might happen again, and then we'll cover the me of it all. I want to talk about how this relates to me as a person, as a content creator, and as someone who is unfortunately tied into the ecosystem of this game. So that'll be at the end, but first, we're going to talk what could have been. Many of the problems with Kid Omega relate specifically to the price and the idea of premium exclusive cards. However, I think that one of the things that could have made this better is if you were simply able to purchase Kid Omega with tokens immediately. The fact is, people don't have gold in the amounts needed to make a dent in Kid Omega in the way they do in tokens. Kid Omega requires more than a month's worth of gold income as a free-to-play player, even if you complete everything you can possibly do in the event. That means that since we didn't have any warning about this, there's not really actually a free-to-play way to get it. However, tokens, as much maligned as they may be, show up on the collection track. There are, in fact, 3,000 tokens at regular intervals on the collection track. I strongly suspect that if Second Dinner had decided to make this be the same exact structure of event, maybe even a relatively more expensive Kid Omega, but allowed you to play for a token discount, this would have been all taken much, much better. The fact is, people just don't have 9,000 gold lying around, no matter who they are. When I purchased Kid Omega, more on that later, went and bought bundles in order to get that gold. And I realized to some degree, that is the point. They want me to go buy bundles to go get that gold. They want me to go spend money because I have 1 million tokens already. But I don't think that's sustainable. I did it this time. I don't know if I'm going to do it next time. And frankly, I am less sure than ever that I will participate in things like this in the future. Again, more on that later. There is a limited well of people like me, and if people like me are having doubts about this, it's very, very bad for the future of this game. In addition, it also ties it into sort of explicitly pay to win. In much the same way that Cassandra Nova being the reward for Deadpool's Diner 1 papered over a lot of the flaws in Deadpool's Diner because people engaged in it so heavily in order to get her, I think Kid Omega being so desirable, strong, and powerful is going to paper over a lot of the flaws of this game mode on the metrics, which unfortunately means that they will be incentivized to put more good cards in situations like this, because that will result in revenue conversions. And I think, honestly, that is something that I feel guilty for having been a part of. Again, more on that later. I keep wanting to talk about me, but we do have to dive in to this situation. So, long story short, if it were tokens instead of gold, and I understand why it is gold, believe me, they got my ass, but it would have been vastly better received. Second point, I think that the price of Kid Omega, even if you accept everything else as something that has to happen for whatever magical bottom line Second Dinner has to hit, was simply too high. Full stop. No way around it. There is no reason why this card should have cost more than any other card in the game. There is absolutely none. None whatsoever. I can see if you're like a boardroom guy with a tie on being like, well, we want to get value out of this card, but we also want to make sure that the discount we offer isn't too steep. So we'll start it high, but most players will still get it for less than what it takes to get a Series 5 card normally. And okay, sure. Have you considered the phrase sticker shock, though? Because all people are going to see is how unbelievably high the first price is. They're not going to sit there and do the math on what your discount is. They're going to look at the price, they're going to get what's going on, and they're going to walk away. And fundamentally, this could have been genuinely alleviated if Kid Omega cost like 10,000 volts less. It's still genuinely a ridiculous amount for anything in a card game, but it's much more in line with what current expectations for cards are. And I think that that sort of thing is really what's driving this. I don't think Second Dinner really understands what went wrong here. I think they sound a lot like that guy that I just did the impression of in that boardroom. They're like, why are you guys actually mad about this? Why are you mad? And I think that part of the reason they don't get that is because they don't understand that this upsets the status quo in a massive way. We have expectations for these things, and they are being upset. Which brings me to point 3, which is none of this was communicated. everything about high voltage overdrive, we only learned the cool stuff. I don't know if it's breaking my NDA to say this, it might be, but as a creator, I didn't know how much this guy was going to cost until the day he came out. I learned it the same time as you did. And so it feels like there is a gap in communication between not just Second Dinner and the community, but just sort of generally expectation setting full stop, right? Like, this is something that if you are going to introduce a new model to a game mode, especially to a game mode that for most people was the easy free card game mode, and you're going to make it the exact opposite of that, that's the kind of thing you tell people. That's the kind of thing you let people know. Because if you just drop it on them like they did, you will get massive backlash like they did. The community was blindsided by all of this, and that shouldn't happen. If you're going to change how you do a game mode, if you're going to change how you do monetization, the least you owe your customers is an explanation of what is going on and why. We didn't get that, it didn't happen, they didn't change it, and to their credit, I guess, they did mention that communication is an area they plan on focusing more on. But frankly, I don't think that communication is the problem or the thing that went wrong here. It's like fourth on the list. And I think that focusing on communication in their response only demonstrates to many people that they don't get the things that are above communication on the list, that they still don't understand what they did wrong. And that is ultimately what makes this such a problem, because I can tell you that I was very confident that they would find a solution, that they would compensate people fairly, as they have done in the past. They're currently compensating people that used VPNs to go buy gold bundles for cheap, and they're compensating those people, but they're not compensating us for this. And I just don't get it. When Nexus events happened, they backed down and they reworked it. Whenever stuff like this happens, they have been good about compensation. And for some reason, it feels like they're putting their foot down on this, which is what sort of brings it to the Nexus event level comparison, where it's like, I don't necessarily think this is, oh my god, the end of the world or anything like that, but it's really bad. And the fact that you're focusing on communication and giving out 2,500 volts in exchange for bugs is just like, it feels like they don't understand anything I talked about in this video previous to the communication issue. It feels like they don't understand that the player base doesn't want to be monetized via premium exclusive cards. It feels like they don't understand that the player base would have much preferred if tokens were usable for Kid Omega instead of gold. It feels like they don't understand any of that, and they think maybe if they just warned us, it would have been better. And it would have been better, but it wouldn't have been good. Finally, I guess I want to talk about the me of it all. Like, how does this affect me as a content creator? What does it mean for me doing videos in the future? I'll be honest with you, I have never been the most thick-skinned person. I think you guys kind of know that. So having the days that I've had recently with so many people calling me like a sellout or a fraud, it's hurt. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like that doesn't hurt me. I am someone who is raw. And that means I am literally as honest with you as I can be without breaking or bending my NDA, which I kind of maybe did in this video anyway, who the hell knows. I do everything I can because I am real. And so it sucks when people call me fake. That hurts me. Attacks on my authenticity hurt me. But I think, frankly, a lot of the people calling me fake had a point. And, you know, it wasn't delivered in the nicest way. But I think that by covering the card the way I did, by not focusing on the everything else about it, and instead being like, well, is this good? Yeah, it's really good. It's busted. Oh my god. I basically did an ad for the card. And I think it's bad. And I think I shouldn't profit from that. So what I did was I took the profits from that video and I donated them to the charity Child's Play, which is run by the people who do packs. Very, very nice dudes. Really appreciate that. So if you want to make a donation, that'd be awesome. I believe Regis Kilbin did the same thing. And that is sort of where I'm at for the future. I plan on, if they do this again, I guess, here, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm a competitive card game player. I've been rank 1 in MTG Arena. I've been top 16 in Legends of Runeterra. I have been top, I think, 20-something in Hearthstone. I've done this, and I think anyone who's played competitive card games will tell you that arguments about price come up, but they're not necessarily germane to the competitive card game. When you show up to the Pro Tour, you show up to win. That's what you do. You don't worry about the price. You show up to win. That's your job. That's the thing you do. By the same token, I think a lot of the people that watch me because they want to see things pushed to their maximum level. That's what they want from me. And I do think that I owe them something, at least, of that in the content that I create. I also just, though, don't feel good profiting from it. And I gotta tell you, when I did that donation, it was like the first time I'd felt good in the last 4 days. So I am probably going to make that a regular thing if Second Dinner makes this a regular thing. I realize there are going to be people who think it is a betrayal or almost strike-breaking or scabbing for me to engage in this system and to purchase these luxury goods while still saying that they are overpriced and bad. And I respect those people greatly, because that is a very principled stance to have. I personally still wear Air Force Ones, even though I have many issues with Nike's labor practices, for example. I generally think that you are allowed to criticize something even as you partake in it. But if you do not believe that, I don't want you to think that I'm out here hating on you. I respect your opinion, and I genuinely mean that. And I truly hope that you carry that with you into other aspects of your life as well. I am not someone who shares it. And I don't think you're going to find me doing that kind of stuff, bluntly. And I wanted to be clear, though, that it's not because I have a financial incentive to do this. I don't want a financial incentive to do this. I bought the first Nexus event until I got Jane Foster. I did that before I was a content creator. That's how I engage in card games. I engage in card games being willing to do things like that. If you have a different line, I think that's okay. But I do think that I will be useful to your cause calling this stuff out, even if I am still going to be engaging in the game. If you disagree, I think that's all right. That's fine. The one thing I have learned from the last few days is sometimes you just gotta let shit go. And this is one of those situations. I'm going to approach this in the future as follows. If they do another Kid Omega type card, another card that is only available via a premium currency like this, I will be donating the proceeds of the video to charity. I will also be exercising pretty heavy editorial restraint on those videos. You won't see titles like OMG, Kid Omega is broken, buy now, or anything like that, even if that results in fewer views for me. That is sort of how I've decided to square this circle. I am someone who is trying to be as genuine as possible with the content that I create, and I know it sounds sort of fake to even say, like, with the content that I create, right? Like, content is such a, like, fake, phony word, but that is where I'm at. I don't think that I want to profit off of this. Or at the very least, I think that if I profit off of this, it should be directed towards helping people. So if they do this again, we're donating again. And if they don't do this again, I mean, great. That'll be awesome. I would love for them to not do this again. I know people are going to ask in the comments about the Battle Pass Fantasticar. I think there is a meaningful gap between something on the Super Premium Pass and this. But frankly, I wouldn't be too upset if I started making a monthly donation to charity. I think that's probably some good in the world. So if that's the worst thing they do, and I end up donating those to charity, that's fine by me. I think it's probably just a good thing. So, on the whole, that's where I'm at. This is a bad situation for the game. I will also say, just personally as a content creator, I've never been that angry at Second Dinner for making my life harder. In large part, I'm pretty grateful to Second Dinner for allowing me to have the life that I do, right? Like, they made the game that I make money on, right? Today is a day where I am. And I think a lot of that is that I am now in a position where I am bearing the brunt of vitriol for their decisions. And it sucks. And I don't really know what that means going forward. To be completely honest with you, I'm recording this at like 2 in the morning, just kind of stream of consciousness talking. These are the things I feel right now. I don't know that I'll feel the same going forward. What I do know is that this is bad and that we're going to see some more charitable donations from KMBest in the future, especially if they keep this up. And even if they don't, I think it's probably just a good thing to do. So that's me. I'm KMBest. You've been phenomenal, and I will see you in the next one.